New tonight, community members enjoyed a celebration of Hanukkah at the Heartwood Preserve in West Omaha.
In addition to free ice skating, the event featured kosher treats and arts and crafts. We spoke with a rabbi who is the director of the Chabad of Nebraska Community Center. He says this event is meant to help spread the light, especially during challenging times. This week, many in the Jewish community are seeking comfort in one another and in their faith after that deadly mass shooting in Australia at a Hanukkah event on Sunday.
Very dangerous. So the need to realize that darkness or evil really has no place in our society will only come if we realize that it's incumbent upon each and every one of us, Jewish or not, to not necessarily fight the darkness, but to light the darkness.
The highlight of the event is the lighting of an ice menorah, which is done by Rabbi Katz.